two really important issues. The first of them, Allah says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ, which means essentially that your master, your Lord, declared that you be enslaved and worship no one other than He. And so the first part of this ayah is making a demand about Allah's rights on us. The second says, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Immediately after he says you should be enslaved to him, he says you better be the best to your parents. The word ihsanan, without getting technical into the grammar, is actually an exhortation. You better be the best to them, the best you can possibly be to them. And you know, it seems like one half of the ayah was about Allah and the other half of the ayah is about parents. But if you look at the ayah, most of the ayah is about parents. First he says, you better be the best to them. Then he says, إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبَرَ, even if they reach old age before you, أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا, one of them or both of them, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ, then don't you dare say even say uff to them. We'll come back to that in a second. But وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا, and don't shrug them, and don't brush them off. وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا, and you better speak especially to both of them with noble speech, with respectful speech. Over and over and over again, one thing after the next, after the next, after the next, about parents. Just one thing about Allah, and several things about parents. Just imagine how serious this matter is. But still, the thing to appreciate is Allah mentioned Himself first. And one of the lessons in that is, you're really not going to be able to be good to your parents if you're not truly a slave and a worshipper of Allah. If you're not doing that first part, you're going to be failing in the next part. So if any of you are messing up with your relationship with your parents, what does that tell you? That tells you not really slaves of Allah yet. You haven't really done that due yet, because the latter would have been easier for you if you fulfilled the former. This is the first thing. The second thing is, what does it mean to be best? And it says, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ. It doesn't even say, وَإِحْسَانًا بِالْوَالِدَيْنِ. That would be a different meaning. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. What that means is, especially when it comes to your parents, and exclusively when it comes to your parents in comparison to others, you better be the best. In other words, it's easy for you to be the best to your boss, because you know you'll get in trouble if you mess around with. It's easy for you to be the best to your professor, because he might fail you. It's easy for you to be the best to your friends, because you don't want to lose them. But when it comes to your parents, you take them for granted. But Allah says no, especially when it comes to your parents. You're on the phone with one of your friends, and your mom calls, I gotta go, that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're playing video games, your mom says dinner's ready, you don't turn around and say, coming, come on, alright, I told you I'm coming. No. Leave it, drop it. If I was at your house, I'd break your TV, go listen to your mother. This is a primary obligation we have in this religion. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Then he says, إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا. He made it a point to mention one or both of them reaching old age. This is really important, because when our parents get older, they get more demanding. And as they're getting older, you're getting more independent and, turning into pretty much an adult. And you think you can make your own decisions and you have your own life, and they're still treating you like a kid, and they don't understand you, and you have all these complaints about them in your head, and you rant about them to your friends. But Allah says, especially when they get old, especially when they get antsy, especially when they get irrational, especially when they get, they don't understand where you're coming from and they put these demands on you, this is the time to be the best to them. And it's not going to be easy for anyone who's not a slave of Allah, who's doing this first, not for their parents, but for the sake of Allah. This is the first thing. And the second thing Allah mentioned. Then He says, وَقُلْ لَهُمَا وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. Don't shrug them off. Don't push them away. This is the same commandment given to the Prophet ﷺ.